Well, you are who you are, as our good friend Pete Prisco would say. And is anybody any good right now? That's the question we're going to get into with our guys as you take a look at our Week 9 scores. Welcome into Game Day Recap. I'm Haley Sutton. The Panthers, boy, they were on the prowl with the win in the contest, a special game for that one. A game-winning kick to beat the Packers. Meanwhile, heart attack Broncos getting it done in the fourth. You won't believe the stat that we've got going on in the Mile High as they pick up another win. And welcome back, J.J. McCarthy, a strong showing in his return. It's time to take you through it all here on Game Day Recap. Let's meet the crew while we're at it. Pete Prisco, feeling good? Your Sun Devils, how about that? Picking up a win.
They don't count. They don't matter.
What were you excited about? I cut you off. What'd you point at me for? What were you?
Because you said my name right that time.
I did.
You got it right.
I did. I said Pete Prisco earlier. I don't know what was going on.
Who is that guy?
I don't know who it is. Pete Prisco's with us. We've got our GM, Rand Carthon, on set, and our quarterback, Danny Kanell. Guys, what a weird day of football. Can we start there first? What did you guys think quickly of Week 9?
I mean, it's Halloween weekend, so everything's kind of a little bit funky, but you had some wild finishes, some tight games in the 1 o'clock window, and we just had a little bit of everything today.
Yeah, you get these ugly weeks. It just happens. It just so happened to be we're at the halfway point of the season, and we were due an ugly week after starting the season so strong.
Well, last week was really ugly.
Yeah,
Remember how bad that week was? This week was weird in that you had the best teams in the league losing. I mean, at home. You can't figure this thing out. You just can't.
All right, well, let's get started with the Bears because what a game that we were in a treat for there. We're going to pick this one up late. Just under a minute 45 to go. Bears-Bengals. The Bears are up 41-35. McPherson on the onside kick. The Bengals recover. A little bit of a scrum to get there. Take another look at it, but you see it there. Bengals get the ball, so here comes Joe Flacco. He's had a great game to this point. Same score. Looking for the lead. He hits Andre Yoshavash for the game-winning touchdown, so the Bengals go up by a point. Flacco loving it. Bears down 1. Can they draw up the comeback? Caleb Williams hits Colston Loveland with the catch, but he wasn't done there. Breaks a tackle, takes it to the end zone. The Bears hold on to win it 47-42. An incredible performance just when you thought it couldn't get any better for the Bengals. And then the Bears turn around and get it done. And how about this? There were some missed tackles, guys, on that Yoshavash touchdown. And this was the sign in the stands. I will not miss tackles. I will not miss tackles. This is like what the kids used to have to do back in the day whenever they got in trouble.
Yes, those of us that are old enough to remember doing that, I think you're probably too young for that, Haley. That's what you have to do. Cincinnati had 15 missed tackles in the game. That is inexcusable, but that's how you give up 576 yards of total offense. Defense, a lot of time, is effort, and I thought you saw a significant lack of effort. Clearly, there's a talent issue there as well for the Bengals, but that was some atrocious defense on display.
We had that conversation before that sign showed up and before that play happened. I told Rand, I go, they are one of the worst tackling teams I've ever seen. And we've seen a lot of bad tackling this year. That was awful. But that play, let's be real. He probably, if they don't tackle him there, they probably make the field goal and win the game anyways. But it just is a terrible, terrible look in that situation.
I'm going to take it a step further. Like, throughout the NFL, you're only allowed 11 padded practices. And so you don't get very many opportunities in practice to tackle, right? Everything, as you know, everything is stud and the tap and you let the guys keep running. No, we need to start putting Rydell to Rydell and start tackling people so we can, you know, get rid of games like this where you have 15 missed tackles. DK, you said it, that's poor. Especially to be a professional football player on defense, to miss 15 tackles in a game, that's a very poor.
Wait a second. You want full padded practices tackling again?
I'm
with you.
That's how you learn.
I'm with him, by the way. I agree with him. But can you imagine? It's a survival test now as it is, Rand. These guys barely make it through the season.
But here's the problem. It starts from a young age. Like, tackle football isn't even allowed in some states before you're 12 or 13. Everybody's playing 7-on-7. You're not learning how to tackle out there. College has similar rules. You're not allowed to do many padded practices. So I think this is a trend that is here to stay. I just think defense is sort of a lost art, and you just have to hope your guys get out there. That's where I come back to the effort issue, because I still think some of it isn't exactly so much technique. It is effort. You mentioned we're at that point of the season, too, where players, they're starting to kind of see the end, and you're just kind of in the doldrums there where you're at week 9, 10, your body's kind of pounded. Sometimes you have a bye week coming up, or you're just kind of trying to get through it, and that is not a recipe for great defensive football.
Listen, I'm just going to wear my old school hat today because that's why training camp is so important.
I agree.
Yep.
It is.
And the physical nature of what we know training camp to be.
Not that way anymore,
But it's
though.
not that way anymore. And so you're losing these opportunities because, like we said, well, we just said it. You only get 11 padded practices during the season. So training camp should be ramped up, right? You should work on all these things while you can. And right now it's just so much of, hey, let's just get to week one. Let's just get there healthy. And I just believe that the first time your body feels stressed shouldn't be in a game.
Right.
The game should be the easy part. Practices should be hard. You should look forward to getting to the game and not the other way around.
The Bengals were atrocious, but Ben Johnson was in his bag as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Let's talk about the Bears.
Exactly. They deserve some credit, too. You had 4 different players attempt passes in the game with several different trick plays. And how about the rookie Kyle Monungai, who is a physical running back? For him to go off for 170-plus, Caleb Williams continues to get better, and it's amazing what it does for a young quarterback when you have a run game and you have some creativity in the offense. He's getting more and more comfortable playing some of his best football. So this Bears team is probably one of the more dramatically improved teams of the season. They've got it rolling right now.
I want to set the stage for what the Bears were able to do today, going off that point. The most points scored in a game since 2018. They put up 47 today. They're now 5-0 this season when scoring 25 or more points. Caleb Williams, you mentioned it, his stat line is crazy. There's so many numbers going on. 280 passing yards, 53 receiving yards. The list goes on and on. Danny, when you look at what the Bears were able to do today, I know you pointed to Monungai, but it's kind of almost felt like a stop-and-go season for Chicago. How did they sort of set the tone or remedy that today?
I think it's just the consistency with which they run. There's a little bit of a youth movement. You got Caleb Williams, you got Kyle Monungai, Colston Loveland had the big touchdown reception to win the game, and then it becomes a confidence thing. I mean, so much about playing the sport and excelling and continuing it is a belief in the system that you're running, the coaching that you're receiving, and then going out and execute it. So now you're starting to stack wins where all of a sudden this Chicago team is starting to believe that they can beat anybody on the field. They don't care what the score says. They can beat anybody at any given time. And it is a reflection of the job that Ben Johnson has done, coming and establishing a culture of winning. But that starts with the preparation on Monday when you go into the building and the preparation you put out so you come out Sunday ready to go.
Yeah, we're raving about his offense, but let's go to the other side of the ball. Wasn't very good over there. I mean, you saw Joe Flacco lit him up.
70 passing yards.
I mean, he lit them up. And so if I'm the
touchdowns.
Bears, I'm sitting there saying, okay, we're excited about what we've done on offense, and they should be. Caleb Williams did some nice things today. He really did. And the creativity is there, and they've run the ball. But let's go to the other side. I mean, this is supposed to be a team that's supposed to be better than that on defense, and they're not very good right now. And that's where I'm concerned about it. But you're right. The offense, fantastic, fun to watch. Defense, really bad right now.
Yeah, and the big thing for me is that they didn't turn the ball over. And that has been a problem for the Chicago Bears offense in turning the ball over. And they didn't turn the ball over today. And, yeah, from a statistical standpoint, they gave up a ton of yards passing through the air, but they were still able to force 3 turnovers and even had some turnovers late that were taken off the board due to penalties and some other things. But when it mattered most, they were able to get their hands on the ball and give their offense a chance.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to them because, to your point, they gave up 470 passing yards from Joe Flacco. I know we were kind of joking earlier with Joe Flacco, which Joe they're going to lean on whenever Joe Burrow gets healthy to come back. Real quick vibe check, though, when it comes to Cincinnati before we hit a break here. When it comes to Zach Taylor as a head coach, where are we at? Because there's been a lot of hot seats, cold seats, et cetera. Pete, I'll give you the floor.
Well, if you're the head coach and you don't have your quarterback, sometimes you get a pass on that. But here's the problem with it. Your defense has been awful. No matter what, you change the coordinator, defense still stinks, you know? So at some point, you got to look at the guy who's making the decision to make those decisions. And so I think it's a hot seat. There's no doubt it's a hot seat when it comes to Zach Taylor. And I think losing Joe Burrow for a long time probably might help save him. But the reality is the problem is the other side of the ball, not the offense.
You keeping Zach or no?
Yeah, I would keep him. Because,
I would keep him, too.
Because here's the thing, and Pete just said it, that you're on your second coordinator, right? And the problem is still there. So is it coaching or is it personnel?
Bingo.
And so that's to me,
I'm
that's
excited about that.
Yeah,
That
no,
was
because I
actually
do.
going on.
I think it is.
He's jockeying for the Bengals job.
You do a better job assembling a defensive roster that could do better than what the Bengals have. We're talking historically bad defensive play from this Cincinnati Bengals defense. And think about, they've invested so much money on the offensive side of the ball, they've kind of ignored the defensive side of the ball, and I think they are absolutely paying for it right now.
But DK, from a team building standpoint, right? When you've spent all your money on offense, you have to hit on young guys in the draft because you're going to have to build the defense through the draft. So we know that's going to take a little time, and then you put them in a new system, and so and you had such turnover, right? Going from your previous D coordinator to now Al Golden and what he likes to do. It's just going to take some time.
But they have invested in the defense on the draft, and they haven't hit on those guys. They've had a lot of guys
that's the personnel.
But that's the personnel piece
Correct.
of it. But then you also have a new coordinator, and then this current draft class is the first draft class to play in his system. So you're still trying to fit the old pieces into the new way of doing things. So it's going to take another cycle for them to try to really get their guys that they really want.
All right, we will leave it there when it comes to another crazy game in the NFL. We got to get to the marquee matchup of the day, though. Chiefs-Bills always brings the fireworks, and every single regular season it seems to be the Bills getting the Chiefs number. What you need to know about that big game next on Game Day Recap. Back here on Game Day Recap. This feels like a holiday every time we get to watch Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen go head-to-head. Their 10th meeting earlier today. It's tied for the most all-time between MVP quarterbacks age 30 or younger. A very specific stat there from our research team. But when you look at the numbers, they give Patrick Mahomes the nod. Why? Because he typically wins in the playoffs. You see that number down there, 4-0 in playoff games. Interesting note about this year's matchup, though, guys. It was the first time where neither of these teams were a division leader in this matchup. Either way, it is the Bills standing tall once again in the regular season. They beat the Chiefs 28-21 as we welcome you back here on Game Day Recap. Pete Prisco, Rand Carthon, Danny Kanell. I'm Haley Sutton. Guys, this was a fun one, kind of back and forth, and it just seems to be that Buffalo has Kansas City's number in the regular season. And Pete, one of the things that we were talking about throughout this game were two things that you pointed to. The tight ends went crazy, and Joey Bosa becoming more and more of a great signing for this Bills team. What was most impressive for you?
Well, it wasn't tight ends. Early in the game, he got them involved. And remember, going into this game, there was a lot of talk about what do they do? They don't have the receivers. Do they go get a receiver? They might go look in the market. They've been exploring it. Do they find a guy? But what Joe Brady did was he found the tight ends, and he took advantage of that, and they had big plays. So I think that's important for them. They still need to address wide receiver, and I think they're going to make a move before Tuesday. They need to get some vertical speed in that offense. When you lack that, it really allows teams to play in a phone booth, and I think they need to get speed. But as far as Joey Bosa, this is why they got him. They've been addressing this Patrick Mahomes problem for years. If you go back and look at their drafts, they drafted defensive ends. Some of them didn't work out. Russo worked out. Some of them didn't. They've tried to address it. Von Miller, then he got hurt. Didn't work out. That's why they got Joey Bosa. Put him on the ground in the big game. But it's all well and good. You do it now in November. But let's see those guys do it in January.
I was going to say, what's the phrase? We'll see you in January. Yep. We'll see how this one works out. Were you more impressed by the Bills' ability to keep this regular season streak over the Chiefs going, or I guess more disappointed in the effort that Kansas City had today?
Yeah, I was more disappointed in the defensive effort of the Kansas City Chiefs, and especially under Spags. Spags is known for being able to make the second half adjustment, and you didn't really quite see that this game because I think they were only held scoreless in the fourth quarter, and they were still able to hold on. But that was going to be my question. How much does this game truly matters? I know it matters in the seeding and where the game is played, but when it matters most, Kansas City has always won. So how much does this win matters? And could it be it's in Buffalo's head, like, oh, here we go again, like we beat them in the regular season? To me, it just puts more pressure on Buffalo to have to do it again, hopefully in January.
We previewed this game earlier in the week, and you asked me about this game and why the Bills have regular season success and Kansas City has postseason success. I think it's because the Bills care more about the regular season than the Chiefs do. The Chiefs are just like, get us a chance in the playoffs. Like they remind me.
Let us get in the tournament.
Yes, just let us get a seat at the table, which Pete was telling me earlier, if the season ended today, they'd be on the outside looking in.
Correct.
They'll be okay, and I do think they get there. But I think the Chiefs, all they care about is the postseason. They're just trying to rack up Vince Lombardi trophies, and the Bills are trying to knock them from their perch. So I do think the Bills are more dialed in the regular season. But what was astounding to me is I never thought you would see a game where you'd have Patrick Mahomes with the worst completion percentage of his career and Josh Allen with the best of his career. That was the phenomenal dynamic that was unfolding. This game reminded me a little bit of the Super Bowl loss to the Tampa Bay Bucks, how much Patrick Mahomes was constantly running around. And while they only sacked him 3 times, they hit him 15 times. And Patrick Mahomes took some big shots today that I think Kansas City has got to go back and look at and say, if we're going to knock off this Buffalo team in the playoffs, we need to do a better job of protecting Patrick Mahomes. And this was a really, really impressive defensive performance. Gregory Rousseau, Bosa, the defensive game plan, bringing some corner blitzes. Mahomes just never looked comfortable out there. And I thought that was probably the story of the game, was the defensive game plan.
You know, you made that point about the importance of the regular season to the. I think that might have been the case in years past. I don't necessarily think that's the case anymore. I think if you look at what Buffalo's doing now, everything they're doing in resting guys and sitting guys and making sure they're back healthy again is to get ready for January. You know, they've been there. They've been close. The regular season used to mean so much to them. I don't think it does anymore. I think it means more about the playoffs. But here's the other part of that, though. You'd rather be in Buffalo in January than in Kansas City. I can tell you that. And so if you can get the game in Buffalo in that, you know, and I know they've won there. I know the Chiefs have won there in the playoffs. You'd still rather play them in Buffalo than in Kansas City.
To your point, if the playoffs were to start right now, the Colts would be the #1 overall seed at 7-2, and followed by the Patriots close behind, and the Jags would have the final AFC playoff spot. The Chiefs are on the outside looking in at 8 because they beat them. You are correct. Okay, final thoughts. Anything else we want to say before we move on here on this?
James Cook was awesome. He was fantastic today. Always good to have that run game going. Josh Allen with his legs again. He's such a dynamic weapon. It was a really impressive day for the Bills.
I think, by the way, real quick, I'm sorry. Both these teams, don't mean to do that.
I know.
Both these teams are going to be active on the market, I think.
What do they need?
I think the Chiefs need to explore running back.
And that's exactly where I was going. Thank you for the lob.
I gave you
He gave me the answer.
There you go.
That's what
You hit the front of the rim. You hit the front of the rim.
Because I was going to say Buffalo has their running game, and they relied on it today. James Cook had 27 carries. Kansas City needs to find their guy. They need a playmaker back there that they can trust in those moments to hand the ball off, because that's going to make this offense even more dangerous when you have the threat of play action.
Where are you going for that, though?
There are a number
Brees Hall?
of places.
Would you call on Brees Hall?
I would call on Brees Hall. I would call on Alvin Kamara. I think he would be dynamic in this offense with his ability to win on those choice routes. If I'm going Brees Hall, I would probably go as high as a 3rd, because he's a young back that you can extend after the year. But then if we're talking Alvin Kamara, it would be probably a 5th that could become a 4th, maybe, depending on his performance, us going to playoffs, all those things.
I think I agree with you. I think they need to make a move for a back, and I think the Chiefs need to make. I mean, the Bills need to make a move for a receiver and maybe a defensive tackle if they can find that.
That trade deadline coming up on Tuesday. I know all of you guys will be well tapped into that.
Well, we will be.
All right, let's hit another break here on Game Day Recap. Let's keep the fun, winning conversations going. I don't know that anyone expected Bryce Young and the Panthers to walk away with a win over the Packers. That's what happens when you wear bad uniforms, Green Bay. We're bringing it down next on Game Day Recap. I want to talk about the Panthers because I think it's hard to be fully in on Bryce Young when you think about the character arc and the journey arc that he's had. He misses last week. We see what Andy Dalton is able to do with this Panthers offense. Then you get Bryce Young back, and Danny, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't perfect, but they have a win over the Packers.
Yeah, because of Rico Dowdle, their running back and that's the best thing you can do for a quarterback who is struggling or still finding his way in the NFL is give him a run game to take some of that pressure off his shoulders. And Kanell has done that with Bryce Young. That's why this Panthers team is where they are. It's their best record through 9 games since 2019, where they're over 500. They're finding out different ways to win. But I'd say this is as good as this is for the Carolina Panthers. I think this is a bad loss for the Green Bay Packers.
Talk to me about Rico, because we were giving him his flowers last week. Chuba came back, and it was still the Rico show. And I believe Coach Kanell has said, hey, we can't slow this guy down. He's got to keep playing.
Yeah, and I don't think you should. You know, and you committed to Chuba Hubbard and you paid him. I understand that, but Rico Dowdle has put this team on his back. And we talk about Bryce Young and his performance and the up and down nature of his career so far. But there is a specific formula to be a good football team, and that's playing good defense and being able to run the football. And this is how this Panthers organization is playing right now. And this has been probably, for me personally, one of the cooler teams to follow throughout this year, because now you're starting to see them buy into their head coach and their GM, and they are learning how to win football games, and they're doing it against some pretty good teams. And so although it's not perfect and you want the quarterback to play better, they have found a formula in which can help them win games until the rest of the program comes together.
Yeah, because they're not all the way together. That's why you're going to have inconsistency. You're going to win a game like this and lose a game when they look horrible. And there's certain situations where they've looked horrible this year. But, you know, when you look at it, we know what they are. Let's flip it over to the other side and talk about that other team. Because that team, I picked that team to go to the Super Bowl. And I thought they would legitimately go to the Super Bowl. And I still think they have the talent to do it. But boy, oh boy, you come off that win last week when everybody's raving about you, including Jordan Love, and then you get to this week against a team you're supposed to win. And I know what happened. They play the Eagles next week on Monday Night Football in Green Bay.
Trap game.
That's a trap game. It's a classic trap game. And you know, in the NFL, when you're in a trap game and you look at it and you go, oh no, we're in a game now. We're not supposed to be. And you look up and you can't get out from underneath it. And they never really did. And so I think there was inconsistency with Jordan Love. They suffered the injury. Tucker Kraft. And so you look around and all of a sudden you have a problem. By the way, Micah Parsons, I look at the stat sheet and I got to watch the film, but nothing today. Zero. You're supposed to be dynamic.
And I'll follow that up with this Green Bay offense. You turn the ball over twice and you were 1 for 5 in the red zone. That's not Green Bay Packer offense. And so I don't care who you are, how talented you are. If you're in the red zone 5 times and you only come away with 1 touchdown, it's pretty hard to win in this league, no matter who you play.
It's interesting that we talk about Jordan Love. The fancy stat that was going around all day, right, is today was Jordan Love's 27th birthday, and the big three in Green Bay all had accomplished a Super Bowl by the time they were 27. When you look at Jordan Love and what he's been able to do, we know the skills there. We've seen the flashes of brilliance, but are you convinced that Jordan Love this year with this Packers team can get that done? Is this a Super Bowl team?
I still think they can be, but I think you want to see how you respond. I think this is still a very young team who's new to this territory, where they're getting picked by guys like Pete and others to make deep runs or go to the Super Bowl, go to the Super Bowl and potentially be a Super Bowl champion. Now it's how do you handle that success? How do you handle trap games? And clearly they're struggling with it right now. So I'm very curious to see how they bounce back against Philly. What do they do once they face this adversity? Because I think the best coaches preach that this is a marathon. It is not a sprint. And as a part of marathon, you're going to have setbacks. You're going to have rough losses. You just do not want to turn them into a 2 or 3 game losing streak. So I'm very curious to see how the Packers bounce back. But I think this is a very young team that is not handling it so far very well.
You're right. They went into the season as, I think they were the second youngest team. They were the youngest team in the league last year. But all those guys who played a lot of football last year, a lot of them as first-year players, you're now in your second year. Second-year players, you're now in your third year. Enough of that. It's time to get over that. You're veterans now. You're supposed to be able to handle this. You have a team that comes into your building and you're 13-point favorites against them, coming off a win, against Pittsburgh where you look dominant. I know the Eagles are on tap, but you have to show up and play. That's a bad look for the Green Bay Packers. They lost to Cleveland earlier in the year. Terrible loss for them. They tied the Cowboys. Terrible tie for them. And so I think the consistency for these young players, like you said, it's time. This is your time now.
I will say this, and because you just brought up the Cleveland loss, look at how Cleveland is constructed and look how this Carolina Panthers team is constructed. 2 good defenses.
Yep.
They have good
running
runners,
games.
good running games, and can shorten the game for them. And so maybe that's the formula to beating this Green Bay Packers team. And because that's what's going to have to take shape come January if they're in the tournament and they're playing. And we all know what January football is. I can just remember a few years ago in San Francisco, we go into Lambeau and we had snow and it kind of, we had to shorten the game. And then we made it a defensive struggle where we beat them with our physicality. And to me, and like Pete said, we got to go back and watch the tape. Panthers, they play a physical brand of football. Cleveland, physical brand of football. Is that the key to beating this Green Bay Packers team?
It is certainly interesting. One more thing before we move on here. I did want to talk about Tucker Kraft. Obviously, his season is done. Unfortunately, tore his ACL today. Pete, how big of a concern is that? Especially, we talked about Matthew Golden didn't have a great game. I think he got banged up as well today, too.
Yeah, and they have a lot of pass catchers, but getting Christian Watson back opens up the field, and that makes Tucker Kraft that much more of a weapon on the, throwing him the short stuff and the intermediate stuff. So he's not there. Hey, they got a tight end they like. Musgrave's a good player too. You'd like to have two good ones, but now he's got to step up and become more of a factor. It's terrible because we all saw Tucker Kraft last week. He had his breakout game. Everybody's talking about Tucker Kraft. He's now one of the best receiving tight ends in the league, and then boom, this happens to him. You hate to see it, but they have enough around that quarterback to adjust. The quarterback needs to be better.
I agree, and you mentioned it. They've got the Eagles next week, so no better time to get better than to take on the defending Super Bowl champs. All right, got to hit another break here on Game Day Recap. When we come back, Maye, Nix, McCarthy, Drake, J.J. Bo, they could be a boy band. They could also lead you to a win. Either way, they will forever be tied together thanks to their draft order. We're breaking down those quarterbacks next on Game Day Recap. Back here on Game Day Recap, Drake Maye didn't have his best outing against the Falcons. He even talked about it after the game. He's got to be better to put their team in better situations, but they still got a win. And really, it was a small blip in an otherwise encouraging season out in Foxborough. He threw for 259 yards, 2 touchdowns on 19 of 29 for the day. And as you take a look at the odds to win the MVP, we just saw what Josh Allen was able to do against the Chiefs. He is the favorite currently at plus 150, but then you find Drake Maye, and you find Drake Maye ahead of Patrick Mahomes, who did not have a great game today. Matthew Stafford, who has been electric. Justin Herbert also on this list. So certainly interesting when it comes to Drake Maye and his development in year 2. And as I mentioned going into the break, Drake Maye just one of, 6 guys to go in the first round of last year's draft in terms of quarterbacks. So we're going to talk about 3 of those guys because I think it gets lost in the sauce, the Jaden Daniels of it all in that draft class. But Drake, JJ, and Bo Nix, all with unique stories and journeys to this point. So let's start with Drake Maye, guys. Obviously, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't perfect, but he was able to get the 2 touchdowns for the day. The Patriots are sitting pretty right now, tied atop at the AFC East there. Danny, what'd you like about Drake Maye and the Patriots?
So the thing I love about Drake Maye is he was my favorite quarterback coming out of this quarterback class. But after last year, I'm like, man, is he going to be okay? Is he going to be able to rebound after he was in a bad spot? And I do think this just goes to show you yet again, we see so many different stories that young quarterbacks are only as good as your supporting cast and your coaching staff and the job they do bringing you along. Because now that he's in a winning culture and a guy like Mike Vrabel comes in there and he's running an offense that really is suited to his style, you're seeing him start to finally reach his full potential. And to the point of him being an MVP candidate potentially, today was his 8th straight game with 200 pass yards and over 100 passer rating. The other guys that have been able to do that, there are 4 other players with a single season streak of 8+. They all won MVP that season. So Drake Maye is looking, if he can continue this type of play, he is very much in play for the MVP, which is a phenomenal story in just year 2.
He has led this team to a 6-game winning streak, the longest since 2021. Rand, how far can this Patriots team go?
This team can really make some noise, and not only in their division and win the division and potentially host a playoff game, but they can go deep into the tournament. And Danny hit it. This is a very well-coached football team, and you can just tell situationally when certain situations come up because they have a lot of key veterans, but a lot of their guys that they really lean on are young guys, and you could tell that they are prepared every week heading into a game. And for a guy like Drake Maye to be partnered with Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels, like you will be ready to play the quarterback position, come game day. So I love where he is. Like Danny, I didn't have him as the #1 quarterback coming out, but I remember going in the year prior to see Josh Downs and standing there at practice, and I'm like, who is this kid? Because I think he was a freshman at the time, and just watching him throw live and then going back and watching the tape and how deadly accurate he was, how his ball placement was unlike anybody I had seen up until that point in college football, and now you're starting to see those tools. And Danny, you said it, like it's all coming together for him. I still think they need weapons around him.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
Kayshon
Boutte, Demario Douglas
had a
Hunter
good day
Henry.
today.
He did?
Yes, he
But
did,
imagine what he can do if he had better weapons around him.
I still think that they can add better weapons around him, and how much. I'm just thinking about the picture and what this is going to look like. We remember Tom Brady. They won Super Bowls But then the picture became completely different when you added a Wes Welker, you added a Randy Moss. It completely changed the complexity of that offense, and I think we're just seeing the very beginning of what this team can be.
I love what he is. In revisionist history, you saying you had him as your number one quarterback. Okay. No, you did.
I did. Thank you.
You did.
All right, just making sure.
But you know, when we rush to judgment on teams, we always do. I just want to read you. This is who they beat. I mean, I got to be realistic. I love Mike Vrabel. I love what Drake May's doing. They're a good football team. You can only beat who's on your schedule. But lost to the Raiders in week 1. Beat Miami. Lost to Pittsburgh. Then this is who they ripped off their wins against. Carolina, Buffalo, which is a great
on the
win,
road.
At New Orleans, at Tennessee, Cleveland at home, and Atlanta at home. It isn't exactly a murderer's schedule. We'll find out more about them next week. Because where do they go?
Bucks.
At
Tampa. Yep. But here's the thing about winning. It becomes contagious. Like, momentum works. Either if you can get, if the season starts coming off the rails, all of a sudden you feel like you can't win, you can't beat anybody. But when you start stacking wins on wins, all of a sudden you feel like you can beat anybody. And I think this team is playing with a ton of confidence right now. That's where I think that is the most valuable asset is winning games, finding different ways to win.
At what point for the New England Patriots, where do they have to win in order for us to see you eat more paper?
No, I'm not eating more paper. I almost choked on that paper.
The hot sauce was hot.
No, but I will say this, though. If they win at Tampa, then they have the Jets, at Cincinnati, and the Giants before their bye week. If they win that game, that means they're probably going to go into their bye week with 10 straight wins, right? Mm-hmm. Wouldn't you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
So
Bucks, if they beat the Bucks, yes, I agree with you.
They're going to go in on a 10-game winning streak to their bye, and all of a sudden you look at them, you go,
by the way,
they're going to be a playoff team. B, they might be the division winner, and C, they might be the number 1 seed in the AFC.
By the way, can't you do this with a lot of teams because this is the way it's set up to help teams turn around and create the parity and give everybody a shot?
But no, what we're saying here is, they played well, but they haven't exactly beat a lot of good teams.
What does Pete like to say when we're in the back and we're choosing between the low-hanging fruit?
Low-hanging fruit. I was trying to figure out which Peteism you were going.
That take is low-hanging fruit.
It is.
That take is low-hanging fruit.
They win their games. That's all you can do.
Just like the Colts. Look, we had this conversation.
I was just looking at the Colts. Who have they beaten?
And we found out a little bit about the Colts. Did we not?
We did. We're going to talk about them in just a minute. I do want to steer us back to those quarterbacks that we were talking about. It is interesting, though, when you look at Drake May and what they've been able to do. J.J. McCarthy, kind of a different story, right? And misses all of last year with the knee injury, and then he comes back and misses the beginning of this year with the ankle injury. But he returns today, Danny, and he takes down a Lions team that has been so explosive. I mean, Amon-Ra, I know he got kind of banged up, but he was almost non-existent in that game. J.J. McCarthy, 143 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have the 1 rushing touchdown as well, too. What'd you think of J.J. in his return?
I thought he was really impressive. Going on the road against one of the better defenses and one of the better teams in the entire National Football League. And I thought he plays with a ton of confidence. The throw he made to Justin Jefferson was a great ball. Now you're throwing to Justin on the outside. He made a great catch there, but he's throwing the ball with a ton of confidence. He is not afraid to take many of those chances because he does have some really good weapons out there. He knows what he can do mobility-wise because he can escape and run, and it was his first time back in the lineup for a while. So I thought this was huge for his confidence. I don't think he lacks any, but I still see a young player who's a little bit more volatile out there. You get some good throws, you get some bad throws. He's got to get more consistent, but I think he is playing with a ton of confidence right now for a young quarterback.
Haley, I know you want to talk about quarterbacks. I know this. But we talked about Ben Johnson being in his bag.
Yeah.
Brian Flores was in his bag today. Because that is probably the most uncomfortable I've seen Jared Goff in a very long time. And they were not afraid to send pressure out there, man up on the outside on all those weapons that the Detroit Lions have. And they were able to contain that run game, which is huge for stopping this team. So as much as I want to give JJ his props and his credit for the performance today, it was that defense that held it down for him. And Brian Flores was really in his bag today.
It was 5 sacks. 2 by the linebacker, Eric Wilson, on blitzes, so you could tell he was coming after him, and he just looked uncomfortable the entire day. Back to J.J. McCarthy. We watched that whole game, and we're sitting there, we're going, wow, what a great throw. And then you go, what is he doing?
Right.
And what a great throw, and what is he doing? And then you look up at his numbers. 143 yards passing. And it was manage the game type of stuff for him, but it's only his, third game? Yeah. It's his third game. So we got to see him grow. There was a lot of good to like, but there's also a lot of bad. For me, I'm with you. This was about the defense. And for the Vikings to go in and win that game the way they did that tells you a lot about Brian Flores as defensive coordinator.
I want to pose a question to the table because we're at this phase. We got to talk about it Tuesday, the trade deadline. If you're Minnesota, are you active at the trade deadline looking for another quarterback as a backup option, just in case something happens to JJ and you want to keep this momentum going?
Give me a name, like
I'm not
Kirk Cousins.
No,
I mean,
just depth. You're talking about a depth chart guy, yes, because Carson Wentz done right.
Whether it's Jameis Winston, whether it's Russell Wilson,
because you got a rookie backup too.
And JJ's already dealt with injuries, so like he's not.
And they like the rookie a lot. I mean, some people supposedly have compared him to Brock Purdy. I mean, think about that. So, I probably wouldn't, to be honest with you. I don't, because if you're playing with those guys, you're in trouble anyways, aren't you?
Well, I think just from an experience standpoint and with the weapons that they do have on this offense and that defense, that if JJ goes down, right, you still have a season that's salvageable and that you can win games. We just saw them win games with Carson Wentz. Right, and they made that move specifically to go get a veteran in the event something happens.
I just don't know who like. Jameis Winston's not going to be traded. They've said that, so he's not.
Well,
so,
I'm
with you though. I agree because I'm not. Brosmer's not the guy. I would go. Absolutely. All these other guys are out there throwing for 40 yards and 40 plus. I'll do it at 50
not
plus.
That much.
Right? Exactly.
This is the era of the old guy quarterback.
Right. Let's go. I'll go do it.
Not that old, but
they can't hit you above the shoulder.
Exactly. They can't touch you anywhere.
So
exactly.
You can rip it for 220. Yes. You can throw for 140. I guarantee you that.
We watched Joe Flacco do it as well.
Right.
You can get out there. You can get it done. We would love to see Danny come out of retirement. Right? You're trying to get Rand a job. Danny,
let's go.
I think Pete just don't want to work with us.
I know. I
don't work with you guys. I'll just be in the same seat dying here in about 10 years.
All right, at the beginning of the show, I teased a crazy stat for the folks at home when it comes to the Denver Broncos, and I told you this when we were sitting. Going into the fourth quarter ahead of today, the Broncos were 3-0, guys, when trailing in the fourth quarter. Obviously, that now becomes 4-0 today after Bo Nix once again gets it done. And Danny, Bo Nix is so interesting to me when you look at him in relation to the rest of that quarterback class, right? Because Sean Payton joked that he was an orphan puppy, that he brought him back home, and now he's flourishing, right? But it hasn't. It's been really wild. The first three quarters are terrible, but get him to the fourth, and it's spectacular.
I think it's a great thing, though. I think he is sort of a gamer. And you want to see quarterbacks who don't flinch when they're faced with adversity, because a lot of quarterbacks, if they have 3 bad quarters, they are in the can. They are done for the day. That is not the case with Bo Nix, who keeps plugging away, keeps running around, keeps making plays, and almost plays better when the chips are stacked against him. The trick that Sean Payton has to do is how do you get him to feel that way from the start of the game so they don't have these, because a lot of these games they're trailing in the fourth quarter are against bad football teams. So they've got to get more consistency from Bo Nix and get him to start making some of the routine plays earlier in the game so that you're not having to make the heroic plays late in the game.
I'm going to steal a line from Pete. Pete's line, you are who you are. What we're seeing out of Bo Nix is what caused evaluators to struggle evaluating him coming out. Because this is flashes of what you saw at Auburn. You saw the brilliance, the playmaking ability, but then you saw those head-scratching throws. And once he got to Oregon, he became a little bit more consistent. But then from the evaluation standpoint, it's like, okay, which one are we going to get? And so now we see that on a week-to-week basis in quarters 1 through 3. We see the Auburn version of Bo Nix, where you see some playmaking ability, and then the Oregon Bo Nix comes out in the fourth quarter where he's calm, he's under control, and he's not flinching, like you said. And so Sean will figure this out because that's what Sean does. And this defense, like we've talked about with a lot of these other teams, this defense is lights out. And so once they get him under control and get him to playing more consistent, this Denver team is going to be a problem.
He's got to start hitting the deep passes. And we can go back to this game and we look at it, and he had one little sequence where he missed a long shot, wide open, missed another long shot, wide open. Then he came back and he hit one. It was a touchdown. And you're sitting there going, okay, he's 1 for 3. But I think the consistency needs to be there. And if he gets the consistency, they're going to end up being a good football team. But right now, it's too maddening and it's too frenetic. It's not quarterbacking the way you want to see it until you have to in the fourth quarter. And you look at that game-winning drive for the field. He had a 26-yard run. It wasn't like he threw it all over the place. It was a typical Bo Nix.
Right.
In the pocket,
well, that's what I was going to say. A lot of the fourth quarter plays are playground football, where he's just kind of running around, making plays. He's got to play better from within the system. And let's remember, he didn't beat C.J. Stroud because he was knocked out of the game.
Yeah,
Hated
that's where I
seeing
was
that
going next.
after C.J. had his best game of the season last week and a big win. To see him knocked out of this game, hated seeing that for C.J.
C.J. Stroud's mother did post a selfie with him, 4 selfies technically, but said he is okay in concussion protocol. Davis Mills did come in that one. One last thing on the Broncos here before we hit a break. Now the most game-winning drives in the NFL this season, they're tied with the Bucs. So Pete, I'll give you last word here. And it seems so silly now that I'm about to say it out loud, but when you compare what the Bucs are doing to what the Broncos are doing, I believe they have the same record, but they've done it in different ways. So which side are you leaning in terms of a team you like better?
The Bucs.
Oh, easy.
It's the Bucs.
I know. As soon as I asked it, I was like,
Once the Bucs get healthy, it's definitely the Bucs. But I mean, look, this defense is really good in Denver. But again, I got to see more from the offense. I'm worried about their offense consistency. Do they run the ball well enough? Do they throw it well enough? Sean Payton schemes open guys, and he's just not hitting them. So I definitely say the Bucs.
All right, I agree. Like I said, as soon as I asked it, I was like, that was a meaty question. All right, let's hit a break here on Game Day Recap. Speaking of the Colts, no good today. Boy, Windiana Jones did not pick up a win today. We're going to break down what went wrong for Indiana and what went right for Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers next on Game Day Recap. Back here on Game Day Recap, I want you to take a look at the AFC playoff picture. This, of course, is if the playoffs were to start right now. The Colts sitting at the top of the division there at 7-2. The Broncos jump up. They kind of swap with the Patriots there, go from 3-2 there. And the Steelers, all your division leaders. I do want to mention the Bills. They get that big win over the Chiefs. Some bad news, though, with that win. Defensive end Michael Hoyt did tear his Achilles today, so he is done for the season. Tough work there for the Bills. And then when you look at the other side of that graphic, guys, the Chiefs on the outside looking in behind the Jaguars, the Ravens sitting there at the 10th seed in a minute. They could sneak up. The AFC is going to be very interesting, a lot different than what we're used to seeing here at this time of the season. Gets crowded at the top, guys, when you don't take care of business, and that is the message for the Indianapolis Colts. Daniel Jones goes from being the hero. We can't say enough good things about him. And then today, it's kind of the same old song and dance. You get the 3 touchdowns, but you also get the 2 fumbles lost there. 342 yards, not bad. But Pete, you kind of said this. They are who we've said it like 4 times today. You are who you are, and the Colts kind of humble us a little bit here.
Well, is this who they are? Or
You tell me.
I mean, sometimes you get into a situation where you go on the road against a team that's desperate and you say, okay, you're going to find out what they have. And the Steelers showed a little bit today, and particularly on the defensive side of the ball. They've been awful on the defensive side of the ball. They got after the quarterback today. They turned the ball over. They took it away. And they did some really good things. They had 5 sacks of Daniel Jones. This is an offensive line that had been really good up until today, and they were beat up. And if it wasn't Daniel Jones' ability to move, it would have been a lot more. So it just might be one of those situations where you go on the road to catch a desperate team, but it does throw up red flags about the Colts. One thing, and I get why they did it, when you play this Steelers team and you look at that secondary, you say, you know what, we're going to go in there and we're going to throw the ball around, we're going to attack them, and we're going to hit them for some big plays and score that way. Well, you get away from who you are, don't you? You got away from who you are. Jonathan Taylor carried the ball 8 times in the first half. I think they got away from who they are as an offense, building it around him, and in turn, they turned the ball over. Run the ball with Jonathan Taylor, throw off of that run. Not throw it, and then come back and run Jonathan Taylor.
I mean, Jonathan Taylor, though, kind of ghosted the Colts offense today. Not his most productive day ran for the Colts offense, to Pete's point.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like Pete said, he didn't have very many opportunities. And a guy like Jonathan Taylor, he needs to touch the ball to really get a rhythm and get going. And I felt like watching this game, when we were watching this game, I want to give Pittsburgh their credit, their props. I think they played well. But I also felt like the Colts beat themselves. And I think they beat themselves, like Pete said, with the game plan. And you're trying to do too much and throw the ball and attack this secondary that have been struggling instead of doing what you do best, right, which is turn around and hand the football off. But to that point, the offensive line struggled. I hadn't seen this group struggle like that this year, and Pittsburgh really got after him. You talk about the amount of sacks they gave up. Daniel Jones, it was 6 turnovers total. He threw 3 picks, fumbled 3 times. I think he lost 2 of those 3 fumbles. That's not Indianapolis Colts football. That's not what we've grown accustomed to seeing this year. And like Pete said, I think this is just a one-off. They were playing a team that really needed it to continue to gain momentum in their division, specifically with, Baltimore coming the way they did on Thursday night. So I just think this is a one-off, and hopefully they get back to turn around and handing the ball off to Jonathan Taylor.
This is a one-off for Daniel Jones, Indianapolis Colts quarterback. It is not a one-off for Daniel Jones historically throughout his career. As somebody who watched him a ton with the New York Giants, when you had Saquon Barkley going and you had a good offensive line, Daniel Jones was great. But the minute he faced some pressure, that's when he got a little bit squirrely, and that's when he got loose with the football and tried to do too much. And it was not a great performance for Daniel Jones. Very curious to see where he goes from here. How much of a bounce back does he have? They have Kansas City in a couple weeks. That'll be a great opportunity, a litmus test to see exactly where the Colts are. But this, I do think, is a red flag for the Colts, because if there's a book on Daniel Jones, if you can pressure him, you can fluster him, you can rattle him. And this is a game, because I think you guys are spot on, where you've got to know, if you're Shane Steichen, this is who we are. And you have to be aware of Daniel Jones' history, where I would expect, and this is what good coaches do, they come in the next day and they say, that one's on me. And you even go up to Jonathan Taylor and say, hey, we should have force-fed you the ball more. I don't care if we're not having success. When I was on the Broncos with Mike Shanahan and Gary Kubiak, I'm telling you, they were so committed to the run game, and any game you deviated from that, the first thing they would do was apologize. And they recognize it. They're like, no, we got away from who we are. I would expect Shane Steichen and that staff to talk to those players and be like, this one's on us for getting away from who we are. And if they do that, I think they'll be fine. But I do think it's a red flag for Daniel Jones.
4 carries in the first 3 drives for Jonathan Taylor. 4.
Right.
That can't happen. That cannot happen. By the way, you talk about their schedule. Next week it's in Germany against the Falcons. Then it's at Kansas City, home against the Texans, at Jacksonville, where they never win, and at Seattle. We're going to find out what the Colts are really made of in the next 5 weeks.
How about the Steelers' defense, though? Because I know that there was a massive narrative this week and even the week before. They're too old. They're not getting it done. They can't move. And yet we've talked about all of the takeaways and things. What do you think about the Steelers' defense?
Well, the front got after it today. And they have talent on that defensive front. TJ Watt showed up and played a big game. They got after Highsmith showed up and got after the quarterback. And so that's the basis of their defense, is to stop the run, and they kind of stopped the run because the Colts stopped it themselves, and then turned their pass rushers loose to cover up the age on the back end. Now, they made a shift back there. Ramsey's now playing full-time safety. A lot of people always thought Jalen Ramsey was going to be a safety anyways later in his career. Well, he's not playing full-time safety, and so they seemed to respond to that. But again, he still threw for 380 yards or whatever he threw for, and so it wasn't like they stopped him; they just turned him over.
Sorry, I lost my place here. The Steelers are going to go on the road. They're going to take on the Chargers next week. That is where we go next. The Chargers kind of sweated out, I would say, against a Titans team that just can't get out of its own way. I do want to mention Dayan Henley, his brother, was shot and killed this weekend. He was a game-time decision going into this one, and he turns around and he has 7 tackles and a sack. I mean, I want to talk about the Chargers offense, but Rand, I'll give you first word here when it comes to the Chargers defense in that situation specifically, for him to get out there and not only play, to put on the jersey, but to have an impactful day. What did that mean to Henley today?
Well, I think it meant a lot for his family, because not only did he lose his brother, his father's currently incarcerated at the time, and so his family has gone through a lot, and they've been going through a lot for over the last couple years. And Dayan has been the bright spot for that family, and he carries his family name with pride. So him going out to play today and be there with his other brothers, that's something that I would expect out of him and the young man that he is. And he has become the captain of that defense for them. And he's become that one guy in the middle that the guys around him, they kind of gravitate to. I had the ability to see him work out this summer in Vegas, and just his approach and how he goes about his business says a lot about who he is. So, thoughts and condolences go out to the Henley family. This is a big loss for them.
He did say after the game, he said, since I got the news, my brothers were there. Denzel Perryman was right there. My coach, Navarro Bauman, was there too. So obviously it was important for him to show up, and he did a great job of that. On the offensive side of the ball, guys, Justin Herbert again, just continues to be a roller coaster. Had the interception, then turns around. He threw a touchdown to a defensive lineman, by the way. Scott Matlock gets in the end zone there.
He's also their fullback, though. They use him as fullback. Yeah, so he plays both.
Okay. But in general, when we think about the Chargers, Danny, what do you think? How do you feel about them as the season has gone on?
I look at them and I feel like I know what Harbaugh wants to do with this team, and yet when I look down and I see Justin Herbert as the leading rusher, I don't think that's what Harbaugh wants to be.
Well,
so they've got offensive.
Had something working against them today.
Right.
Jamie Eisenberg made him the start of the week.
Oh, he did.
Womp womp.
But they've got to get their offensive line situated and healthy for them to come back and execute the way that they want to.
Joe Alt, to that point, before we move ahead here, he was believed to have suffered another high ankle sprain. This one might require surgery. So to your point, that offensive line just cannot stay consistent.
Yeah, and it's hard to get any semblance of a run game going and protection for that matter. Herbert got hit a lot today, and he was under duress a lot. And so the game, to me, changed once he started using his legs. Because for a while, he was standing in the pocket and trying to operate solely from the pocket. But once he started escaping and getting out on the perimeter, I thought that's when they really started to go off, as an offensive unit. But this defense, to me, I'll just say this team as a whole has been tough for me to buy into in terms of them being a team that's going to come and make some noise in the playoffs. I just hadn't been able to buy it, and the way they played today, although they came away with a victory, is another reason to why, you should be able to put your foot on the gas, close that game out, easily, and they just weren't able to do it. Now, the Titans came out and played some spirited football today, but it's just tough for me to buy into this Chargers team.
The whole identity of the Chargers team was supposed to be a physical, knock you back in the run game, play good defense, and be physical, and they're not that. That's not who they are. And so that's the concern. You talk about the offensive line, we look around and see, we talk about trade deadline. You could make a trade for a receiver. You could make a trade for a corner. It's awful hard to make a trade for a lineman because there aren't many. Yeah. And, backup linemen in the league, teams hold them in high value because they know that they're going to have to put them in play. So I don't know where the Chargers can go find a tackle, because now you lose Slater, who's one of the best in the league, and now you lose Alt, who's one of the best in the league. You have big problems.
This is why you have your young players and you continue to develop them. Because at some point you're going to need them, and you have to be able to trust your process and know that you got the right people there, and just understand, hey, this guy isn't going to be Joe Alt, this guy isn't going to be Rashawn Slater or Mekhi Becton for that matter. We're just going to have to deal with the ebbs and flows of how this person's going to come in and play. But you also, and you talked about it with another guy earlier, you got to be able to adjust to what you have out there on the football field and not put them in those tough situations.
Real quick, Rand, and we'll leave this and move it on. How are you feeling about Cam Ward and his development this year?
It's tough. It's tough because not only do you, at one point, your head coach removes himself from calling the plays, and so now your quarterback coach becomes your play caller, and then your head coach is fired, and then someone else comes in. But to me, the big difference in losing your quarterback coach, who's now the play caller. You're not getting that one-on-one attention that you need to help with your development, because now he has to game plan. So I don't know how, what's working in their building, who's actually coaching Cam on a day-to-day basis, but I'm sure some things and some technical things have changed now that your quarterback coach has moved on to become the play caller.
I think it's almost impossible to evaluate Cam Ward this season. And it'll be like a bunch of quarterbacks that we've seen recently that in their rookie year, the head coach has been fired, you clean house, so next year you're kind of starting from square one all over again. And it sets back your development. Yeah. It's a year wasted. That's what I hate seeing for some of these young quarterbacks.
Can I ask you this legitimate question, though? We say that about Cam Ward. It's hard to evaluate him. They made an evaluation on Will Levis last year, didn't they? Same situation. No players, bad situation. The same coach they fired, and yet everybody made the evaluation on him.
Well,
this guy makes.
Your love for Will Levis knows no bounds.
It's the reality of it. It's true.
It is. But he had a couple years, though, didn't he?
Cam Ward needs to pick it up.
But Will Levis had a couple years.
He had a half a year, and then he had part of last year. He had to have a whole year.
We'll leave it at that. Will Levis, we are always thinking of you here on Game Day.
I know Pete is.
I do. Because I think somebody's going to get themselves a quarterback down the road. He's going to end up like Sam Darnold.
Maybe the Vikings? Maybe that's who the Vikings trade for.
Well, he's not available.
Yeah.
He's on
You're
IR
right.
right now.
You're right. I forgot.
Get better,
about that.
Will.
Yeah.
Get better, Will. We are certainly thinking of you. Let's go to another exciting game that came down to the wire. Who would have thought? Raiders, Jags. This one was a weird one. Normally when we're talking about Geno Smith, he's throwing interceptions, but today he had a pretty clean game. He had 3 touchdowns. Unfortunately, that final drive in overtime, they go for it on 2. They can't get the connection. Danny,
I love the decision to go for it,
that's
by
what
the
I was
way.
gonna say.
I love it. I mean, the season's already kind of gone off the rails. You don't have so many opportunities to win game, and it comes down to one play, and you can dictate whether you scored or not. And there was a player that was wide open. You just couldn't get there because the ball did get batted down. So I think it's just one of those seasons for the Raiders where it doesn't think you can, you just have some tough luck going against you. But for Jacksonville, I thought this was a game where Jacksonville's a team that just, you talk about teams that are hard to buy into. Jacksonville is probably one of the harder teams to buy into. That still could end up playing in the postseason.
And could end up winning the division.
Right.
As crazy as that sounds. And they, they haven't played very well. And at some point, at last drive of the game, right? Trevor Lawrence is throwing to Austin Trammell, Tim Jones, Johnny Munt and Hunter Long, and somehow, some way they found a way to get down the field. And they ran the ball. They made some good plays in that situation, but they're so banged up on offense. Brian Thomas went out of that game. Travis Hunter wasn't in the game. Bretton Strange, their tight end, not in the game. And all of a sudden you look around. They might be a team that needs to make a move to find a playmaker. If you can get one, maybe they need to make a move to get one.
I'll say this to your point in you saying that it's hard to buy into the Jaguars. I'll just say this. I didn't expect them to be where they are right now. Just me coming into the season, I was like, in my mind, this is going to be a development year. New head coach, first-time head coach with a whole new system. It'll take them a year. And they've played better ball than I thought they were going to play. But we talk about this Raiders team. They were efficient today. And that helps when you get Brock Bowers back.
Yeah.
And we saw him, and we saw his versatility. We saw him. He had handoffs today, and just his run after the catch skills and ability. Like, having him in the lineup should help this Raiders offense really get going. We saw the run game be effective today. Ashton Genty ran hard. I think he had a receiving touchdown as well today. And so it was one of those games, like you said, that decision to go for 2, that is a Pete Carroll decision. Like, they are there to win the game. And so I think that decision, I love the decision as well. And man, was Tyler Lockett wide open in that spot. It just and you
it
called
got blocked, though, didn't it?
Yeah, ball got batted.
Devon Hamilton.
And had it just been a little more arc. And look, I'm standing
Right,
behind. It's easy for me to say. I've never thrown a pass in a game. But if you would have liked to see that ball get a more arc. But even that, Devon Hamilton, he left his feet early. And so he was just kind of hanging in the air. And when you got that pressure and he's just trying to get it out. But, man, I think had they connected on that, I think we would have saw a different Raiders team.
And Brock Bowers being back, him 3 touchdown catches on the day. He is one of the best in the league right now, and clearly that helped Geno a ton too.
But to your point about putting loft on the ball, Devon Hamilton weighs about 340 pounds, and his vertical jump is probably about that high, and he still knocked it down.
Yeah.
Got his paw on it. Are you, real quick, just to end on that point, are you feeling encouraged by what you saw, at least with the Raiders today, or are we still out? I mean, they're 2-7, so it's not a great record, but at least the football, are you encouraged by it?
I'm happy that we saw better football out of them.
Geno was better.
Geno
was better.
We
That was
saw
important
better.
for them because he had not played very well. He was much better.
I'll say this, and it's just mathematically, if you're 2-7, it's hard for me to be encouraged.
Sure.
But like I said, I appreciate that they played better ball today, specifically Geno.
And you want to see, there are a lot of teams that throw in the towel and they start going through the motions. I think they're still fighting and clawing and trying to win games.
Is going for 2 basically saying we're throwing in the towel, though, in that situation?
I mean, I think they're saying, let's try.
If they were in a playoff race, would they have gone for 2?
No, probably not, but they know they're not, so they can take that decision.
But I think, too, because of who Pete Carroll is and the message he preaches, like, guys, we're here to win football games.
Yeah.
And I think him going for 2 was more of a statement to the team, like, I believe in us and I believe in our ability to win this football game. And sometimes that's all you need is just that little, this guy believes in us, so we got to keep fighting. And he knows that it's that time of year where there are some teams out there they've thrown in the towel and they're just kind of, hey, we need 11 to kind of run out here and compete today.
I think players love, now everybody goes for it on fourth down, not like everybody, but players love when your coach says, we're going to go for it on fourth down, we're going to go for 2. I think it shows your team that we still believe in you, and we're going to put it in your hands to try to go win the game. And I think players always respond well when you put faith in them and say, hey, I'm going to bet on you guys.
If they were 5-2 or whatever, they wouldn't have done that.
Let me ask you this.
I don't know. I think they might have.
I don't.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because we have to always throw in the coaching wrinkle in all of this. And I know that Pete Carroll has all this experience, and it feels weird to say, is he on the hot seat after just half of a season in charge here? But they are now tied for the worst 8-game start in his career as an NFL head coach. He did the same back in 2011 with the Seahawks. Coaching change necessary in Las Vegas, or you stick with him?
No, absolutely not. No way. And by the way, you start seeing little glimpses of Patrick Graham's defense is starting to play a little bit better, and you're starting to see, the offense. Chip Kelly I think he's had a hard time scheming it up without Bowers being in the lineup. Now that he's back, I think you're going to see a better offense. So absolutely not this quick. No way.
And I was somebody who earlier in the season was like, uh-oh, could this have been a mistake? But I think he's definitely earned another year.
All right, earned another year. We will see if that is the case for Brian Daboll. Got to hit a break here on Game Day Recap, but we are headed to the Meadowlands next. At least we're going to talk about the Giants coming up next. Is he back on the hot seat? Is he safe for another year? We'll discuss after the Giants lose to the 49ers. That's coming up on Game Day Recap. Welcome you back here to Game Day Recap. We got our guy Pete Prisco, Carthon and Kanell. I am Haley Sutton. Let's talk about the Rams, guys, and Matthew Stafford and just what this team has been able to do. First of all, can we get Puka Nacua a healthy season? But Pete, I see you smiling over there. What'd you like about the Rams today?
Because I think Matt Stafford right now might be the MVP. And I didn't think that 2 weeks ago. In 2 successive games, he's lit it up. And when you light it up like that, all of a sudden you're back into it. He's leading the NFL in touchdown passes with 21. He's on fire, and he's playing at such a high level. They played the Saints, so you got to temper it a little bit. But this guy, when he's in a rhythm, nobody throws a better pass than Matt Stafford. And he can do it a bunch of different ways, sideways, over the top, down the field. And they really don't scare you with their speed, and he still completes passes down the field. So I think right now, Jonathan Taylor kind of played himself out of the lead spot. He did, or the Colts did. Daniel Jones didn't keep himself in the conversation. Josh Allen's in it. But I think right now, if you ask me who the MVP is, Matt Stafford.
Yeah, and we talked about it, Pete. We talked about it in the green room. I hadn't put enough respect on Matthew Stafford's name in this season because you expect the Rams to win football games, right? And so you're more attentive to the flashier things that are happening around the league. And so after we watched this performance today, I was like, this guy needs to be in the at least top 3 of the conversation, and he's playing really good ball for them. And again, you talked about it. There's nothing Matt Stafford cannot do in terms of throwing the football. When I think of the term arm talent, which I hate in terms of evaluation, I think the word arm talent was created with Matthew Stafford in mind because of just his uncanny ability to throw the ball from every which arm angle and still have zip, and his patented no-look pass. He just makes it all look easy. 3
things to know about Matt Stafford's performance today. Back-to-back games with 4 or more passing touchdowns for the first time in his career. The most passing touchdowns in a 2-game span with the Rams, that's 9. And he has 16 passing touchdowns, no interceptions over the last 5 games. Sounds pretty MVP-like to me.
He is, and the thing that's scary, I think this team is very, very scary. I think I don't think anybody wants to play the Rams with McVay's history of success, with Stafford's history of success, and Matthew Stafford is playing some of the best football of his entire career. And wow, does it seem like a long time ago we were talking about his back in training camp, how is his health, he's getting up there in age, and for him to be able to respond and come look like this, like an MVP candidate, is pretty astounding. But I think the Rams might be one of the most dangerous teams in the NFL once the postseason starts because of their track record. Devontae's there. They're running the ball with Kyron Williams really well. They are a complete, well-rounded team with an experienced quarterback who we know what he's capable of doing. And by the way, remember the narrative around Matthew Stafford when they did win the Super Bowl? He was turning the ball over a ton, right? He only has 2 interceptions along with those 21 touchdowns. He is playing some of the best football of his entire career.
Let me one-up you. I one-up you sounds dramatic.
I like
You
it.
just went up to him.
With the quarterback conversation, we're talking about all the electric things that Matthew Stafford did. At least at the start of the game for the 49ers, Mac Jones was pretty electric too, and he was perfect. Went a perfect 14 of 14, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns in the first half of that game. What did you think about Mac Jones?
He was awesome. This is one where I do think, and there was a lot of conversation around Brock Purdy and his management of the system. This is a system that is very quarterback friendly. And when you've got a running back like Christian McCaffrey that can do so many things his way, that's really what makes it go. And then it's a very high percentage completion system that you're running in that Kyle Shanahan likes to run. So you're just kind of back there taking what the defense is giving you. And Mac Jones has a ton of experience. So I thought it was really, really impressive day for Mac Jones.
Yeah, there are some reports that Brock Purdy could be back next week.
Yeah, I bet he's coming back soon.
Mac was like, I'm letting it fly. If this is my last one, I'm letting it fly. I'm going to do me. And boy, did he let it fly today. I thought he was just really efficient, really accurate, and just made some really nice throws for him. And they were efficient in the red zone, being able to score touchdowns in the red zone. And, I guess I'm going to use Pete because they played the Giants. You can only beat who's on the schedule, Pete. But, again, I think, and Pete talked about earlier, Mac Jones is showing why it's so important to have a quality backup because this offense and the litany of injuries they've had on offense and defense, and they're still in the playoff hunt and still in contention to win their division because of a guy like Mac Jones.
Let's go to the other side and talk about those Giants. Their third consecutive 2-7 start. And Pete, at the beginning of the season, when we were talking about the Giants, the one bright spot was supposed to be this defense. And yet when we look at the defensive effort today, it obviously wasn't there.
And that's the thing that disappoints you if you're the Giants, because they went out and took a 7-0 lead, and all of a sudden you look up, you go, okay, now I can turn my pass rushers loose, and I can stop this team and stop the run game. Well, the 49ers ran the ball for over 150 yards. I mean, they did do what they normally do, which is run the football, and then Mac Jones threw off of that. If you're the Giants, you were supposed to have this dominant defensive front. I don't know if you saw last week, but your dad's former teammate, Carl Banks, called out Dexter Lawrence publicly and said, look, you got to start picking up your play, but he's not alone. I mean, think about the assets that they've used on that defensive line. You've used first-round picks on Thibodeau, high first-round pick. You spent a lot of money on Brian Burns, and you also drafted Carter this year, high first-round pick. You're supposed to be better than that. They're not, and so that's very concerning.
Go ahead, Haley. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, keeping the hot seat check going here when it comes to Brian Daboll. Danny, what do you think? Is he still in the hot seat?
Absolutely. I think you've got to be pleased with the play of Jackson Dart. I think he's been, as advertised. And I think he's cleaning up his play. Didn't have any interceptions today. It's still going to be a wild ride. But, man, you've got to win a few games to try to get Brian Daboll off that hot seat. And I just don't know. Their schedule is not getting any easier. I just wonder if it'll be too much to endure at the end of the season, even with a young, talented quarterback, if the Giants just say, you know what, we've got to go in a different direction.
Yeah, and I don't think he'll be on the hot seat just because of what we've seen out of Jackson Dart. And you talked about it earlier when we were talking about Cam Ward. It'll be a detriment to the development of Jackson Dart and the progress he's made by getting rid of the head coach that believed in him probably more than anyone else. So I don't think at this point, I think they kind of know what the season's going to be. And they just want to, just see where Jackson Dart continues to grow. Because think about it, Wan'Dale Robinson was targeted 11 times today. That was his number one target.
Right.
And no disrespect to Wan'Dale, but, they still need to continue to add pieces.
What do you think, Pete?
I think he's coming back. I think Daboll will come back in large part for what you said, because you want to develop the quarterback. You don't want him to have to, play in the position. It's hard to learn a new system all over again. I wonder about the general manager. That's the one I wonder about. We talk about this roster being upgraded and what it is, and it really is it really upgraded? I mean, like we said, they used a ton of assets on the defensive line. Are they that dominant? They aren't. The secondary is not very good. They have no weapons. Neighbors goes down, and all of a sudden you're weaponless, and Scatterboo goes down, and you're not going to run the ball consistently. So I think there might be a change with the general manager, but here's the problem with that. If you change the general manager, he's going to want his own guy in his head coach, or that coach is going to be a lame duck for the year. He better win, or he's out the next year.
It is very interesting. Jackson Dart, a positive there, the first quarterback in NFL history, the first rookie, I should say, with a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown in 4 consecutive games. So there is a bright spot there for the Giants. We'll just have to wait and see who's going to be the coach next season. It is time for everyone's favorite segment on Game Day Recap, winners and losers. Spoiler alert, the Bengals are on this list. They are someone's loser. We'll tell you who picked them after this. Welcome back to Game Day Recap. Let's wrap up the show with everyone's favorite winners and losers. This was a weird week of football. Some big winners, some big losers. So let's take you through it with the crew. Pete Prisco, as always, going to get us started. Pete, who is your winner this week?
My winner's the Buffalo Bills, and in large part because this was a defining game for them. They had to win this game. Look, I know it's all about the postseason for them, and for Josh Allen to stop being Charles Barkley to Michael Jordan. He's got to win in the playoffs by beating Michael Jordan, who's Patrick Mahomes. But this is an important game because you want to have a chance to have the playoffs go through Buffalo, which is still a real possibility. But more than that, there were questions about this team. We've had moments in the last month where we were like, are they good? Are they not? Well, they were really good today. And the best part about it, Joey Bosa was outstanding. Maxwell Hairston was playing, and he's outstanding and is going to be able to cover people down the field. And I think they're going to get guys back, and all of a sudden we're going to look up and we're going to go, you know that Bills defense we were worried about? We're not so worried about them. Now, they did lose Michael Hoyt today with a torn Achilles. That's a big hit to them, but they have enough bodies they can navigate through that. I love this team. I love where they're heading. I picked them to go to the Super Bowl. I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, I'm going with Christian McCaffrey. Had 100 yards today on the ground. Led them in receiving with 60 yards and had both a rushing touchdown and a receiving touchdown, making that the 16th career game in which he's done so, passing Marshall Faulk for that. And he also had another milestone today, became the fastest player in NFL history to have over 12,000 yards, and did so in 104 games. So chose CMC today for the winner today, and he was big for helping them get this win.
I got to go with a quarterback for my winner, and there was a lot of good quarterback play today, but I'm going to go with J.J. McCarthy for the Minnesota Vikings. His first game back in the saddle. He had 2 touchdowns, beautiful, beautiful throw to Justin Jefferson for one of the touchdown passes. Also rushed for a touchdown as well. And while the stat line doesn't blow you away, the most important stat line of all, he got a win on the road against one of the better players in the NFC and a divisional opponent. J.J. McCarthy, my big winner.
Pete went with his Bills. You go with a running back. You went with a quarterback. I'm, of course, going with a kicker because Cam Little, my
That's right. You are a kicker.
68-yard field goal, my buddy. Round of applause. Now, I will say that record will probably be broken tomorrow. Brandon Aubrey and the Cowboys are playing, and you know that competitive nature. But, man, what a treat there for the Jags kicker. All right, let's go to losers. I'll take a word from Pete here. I'm taking the low-hanging fruit. The Chiefs are my loser this week just because Patrick Mahomes, for as much praise as we give him, he can't do it all, but today I think he could have done a little bit more.
I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals and their defense specifically, giving up 576 yards of total offense, 15 missed tackles on the day, including the game-winning touchdown. There was about 3 or 4 just on that play alone. This is not just one game. This is a trend the entire season. We are seeing one of the historically worst defenses in the history of the NFL. The Cincinnati Bengals, my biggest loser.
I'm going with the Colts. Just didn't look like yourself today. Simple. Didn't look like yourself.
And I'm going to pick my Super Bowl team and the Bills as the winner. I'm picking the other one as the loser, Green Bay Packers. You can't lose that game today. You're better than that. Next week come the Eagles. You better play better or you're going to have another loss.
You still leaning with the Bills to win the Super Bowl?
Yes.
All right. There we got it. Another episode of Game Day Recap in the books. We've officially crossed over the halfway point. Shout out to Danny Kanell for jumping in. We're going to have to get you on this promo, although it took us forever to get Rand on there.
It'll take too long, Danny. Trust me.
Pete's just texting. He's ready to go. We'll see you next week on Game Day Recap.